Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Talk of the Town podcast, where each and every week we bring you valuable insight and information that directly affects our local business community. I'm Danielle Hawley, and I'm the Executive Director of the best Chamber of Commerce around, the Fontana Chamber of Commerce, and I'm proud to bring you the Talk of the Town podcast with my amazing co-host, Mr. Carlos Garcia of FYI Technologies. Carlos, how's it going?
Going fantastic, Danielle. Looking forward to today's show.
Well, this week we have Vilma Brager, COO of Insight HR Consulting. Vilma, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here today.
Well, we're so excited that you were just jumping in with us. You were just here at the Chamber on Wednesday for our Donuts and Coffee members only seminar. And so that's one of the things that we do here at the Chamber. We love to be the advocate, voice, and resource to our local business community. That's our mission statement. And one of the things that we love to do is host these members-only seminars. And you represent Insight HR Consulting, and you came down and gave just such a fantastic seminar. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it was just so fresh, and I feel like it was so relevant to what's happening right now that I thought, oh my gosh, we have to have her on the podcast so she can share all of her nuggets of wisdom. So before we get into all that good stuff, I wanted you to first start out by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to do that. So about myself, I have been a human resources professional for a very long time, 24 years. Wow. And before going into that profession, I was actually an operational leader with many different kinds of companies, pretty large organizations such as Brinks Armor Trucks, FedEx, Amazon. And from an operational standpoint, that leading people was a really very significant part of my life. I really love working in teams. And then I had the opportunity to move from an operational position into a human resources, thinking I want to have a better work-life balance. That was the main reason. Never happened, hasn't happened yet. But I love what I do. Every day there's something new that I learn. And so I really love the profession, and I really love helping business thrive, especially here in California. So 24 years in HR now, and a little bit about Insight HR Consulting. We started right in the middle of the pandemic, really, in 2021.
Wow.
What a great time to start a business.
Right? Yes. And at that time, I was working for an organization when I was presenting quite a lot of education information to business owners. And, there was a big need, right? Nobody knew anything. How do we manage through all this chaos? Sure. People, they're getting ill. How do we manage all these situations? And I was very thankful that I was asked to present. And it was a webinar. And the first time that presentation took place, there was over 500 business owners.
Wow.
So I was invited to come on that web meeting every other week, talk about just human resources, payroll, and safety, because there is quite a lot of involvement in all of that. And so quite a lot of those business owners had reached out to me independently, and they're like, can you help us? Can you please help us? Of course, I want to help. But at that time, I really didn't have the bandwidth. And so I said to myself, this is something I want to do for retirement. Right? This is definitely, there's a need. And I love helping businesses and people in general. And I thought, what a great match. Never thought of that before. I mean, my mom has been an entrepreneur. And so I used to help her quite a bit. But I never thought, maybe I do my own thing until COVID hit. And there was that need. And there was a lot of asking for it. So that started the thought, I can do this myself. Absolutely. And so, the universe tells you many times, quite a lot of different things. You sometimes need to pay attention. And then as soon as that was happening, I had other folks saying, maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do that. And I thought, maybe I should. And I took that.
Yeah, exactly.
And here we are almost 4 years later. I started Insight HR Consulting, and I was sharing with Carlos earlier. Now we have a team of 6 HR consultants and 2 safety risk consultants that help quite a lot of businesses out of California, but we also extend our services outside of California.
Wow.
Vilma, also, while you're talking about that, and I know this is going to be like a side comment on there. I know that HR folks are usually the what do I call it, the warriors of the business world, right? Because you guys take a lot of negative stuff and internalize that. Sometimes that, it's a tough job. I don't think people realize that, you guys are always pretty much set out to be the bad guys, right? That's how everybody puts you guys. But you're doing your job, to really help the communities and all that. But getting back to what you were just saying, talk about your obviously your company a little bit more. Talk about your role in the Insight HR consulting as well.
Yep. But let me touch base on what you just said. It is a very rough, tough role to be in. Meaning you have a commitment not only for the company, but also for the employee piece of it. It's got to be just like a marriage. There's, it's going to be kind of rough sometimes. And sometimes we're going to have to recommend things that the company don't want to hear, or they may not have the flexibility. The same that we have to recommend to the employee things that they maybe don't want to hear, right? And so it is a very challenging role, but it's very priceless, because when you are able to meet in the middle and, you provide the best recommendation for that situation, and you see parties understanding, okay, yeah, that's the best we can do, and they can still work together in that positive work environment, it's thrilling, meaning wow, that's awesome. We were able to do that and partner not only with a business owner, but the employees too, right? Now, the other reason why I went into business is because I'm very fully aware, and I'm sure you are too, of all the different types of lawsuits that happen here in California with employers. And mainly their wage and hour situation, maybe wrongful terminations and things like that. And there is a lot of employers that may not have the support of an HR professional, right? They are trying to, doing the best that they can, not knowing what they don't know, right? And so one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this as well is I really want to help businesses have an opportunity to really thrive here and start their business in the right direction from the get-go. I mean, you can always start at any point in time. It's just a little more painful, a little more time consumption to correct things that might have been done incorrectly. But there's always that opportunity. So what better than to start having those conversations as early on as possible to mitigate those risks, right? So, we've helped businesses, and, in California, there's about 17 different kinds of industries. And myself and my team are well educated in all of them. And every industry has a little bit of a difference, right? An example, and we talked about that this week, if you're in the healthcare industry, there's a minimum pay requirement. If you're a franchisee of a restaurant now, there's a new minimum pay for those type of situation or establishments, right? And so we really want to make sure that when somebody started their business, we started it right. We ask questions to make sure that the business owner understand what are some of the responsibilities, and ensuring that also people that are helping them be established, they're reputable, right? They really are a good partner for them. They got to tell them the truth about situations that can happen. Insurance carriers, what insurance do you really actually need and you should have, right? And so it has been extremely rewarding personally for me, because we have been able to help quite a lot of different businesses make corrections. And most of the time, other consultants might have helped them, but they may have provided the wrong information, maybe not particularly for that particular industry. And so by the time we come around, we are always recommending the right way to do things, but also business owners still have the final decision, right, in regards to what implementation they select. But they do know and understand the risk behind all those decisions.
And I would say being in California in general can be difficult just on the business side of things, right? I feel like sometimes it feels like Sacramento is just coming out with all of these new laws and requirements. And, it's always, I'm always happy when I see people from our business community get elected to represent us up at the assembly level or the Senate level, just because I feel like they have a better understanding of really what the day-to-day operations are like being a business owner. And so it's always, helpful, obviously, to have legislation that is more business friendly. But sometimes in California, it feels like that's not always the case. So do you feel, in your experience, since you mentioned you deal with different states, are we the most regulated and difficult, or are other places, similar to us, different? What do you think?
There's a couple out there that are very similar to us in regards to employment laws and regulations. New Jersey is one of them, New York. And in the last couple of years, we have seen an uptake in employment laws and leave of absences in Washington and in Nevada. And I think it has a lot to do that there's, unfortunately, right, there has been companies that have moved away from California.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of folks leaving California. And I think those updated labor laws or employment laws, are a result because of new people going into those states. And then let's just be honest, like you said, we are the state that implement quite a lot of regulations. So we are trailblazing quite a lot of different policies here. And so other states are trying to bring those policies to their state. I mean, some of the challenges, right? That I think the biggest challenges we've seen recently for those employment laws is your paid sick leave, 5 days, right? That went from a 3-day to a 5-day. That hits the bottom line, right? And it's not like the organizations or the companies are getting a tax break for that, right? It's not. It's just a regulatory compliance now that they have to offer it to everyone, right? That's one. Another thing that was new last year in the middle of the year is the workplace violence prevention plan, right? Totally makes sense. And a lot of the times I understand the reasons behind why they're thinking of putting all these new regulations and new updated employment laws. So I think the intention is right, but the application and the reality of running a business, that needs to be a much better communication or experience, right? So it will be great if more business owners can be able to represent up in Sacramento about what are some of the pains. We are very fortunate being in the Society of Human Resource Management that in the last several years, they actually are asking our profession certain questions. What do you think about this legislation we're thinking about? And there has been members of SHRM going to our Capitol and say, that's going to be a very difficult implementation. And here's the reasons behind that. For example, last year, and please, I'm going to be incorrect here in the name of the legislation that we're trying to propose, but it was a proposal where California wanted to ensure that people, as soon as they clocked out of work, they were not being bothered by the company, like via phone calls or things like that. They were trying to, and I forget it, I'm sorry, but SHRM actually went to the Capitol. I went to the Capitol last year and voiced out that's a big concern, right? And an organization needs to be able to communicate with their employees. What if there's emergencies after hours, right? Or there's a particular situation from a customer standpoint. But we also brought up the competitiveness on that. It's not just challenge for California to be worldwide, right? We have clients here, companies here that do business to the East Coast, vice versa, right? So somebody has to be available for those kind of situations. And I am very thankful that did not move forward, right? So again, the intention makes sense. I can tell you employers nowadays understand, like if I'm going to call my hourly associate at 8 p.m., I better pay them for that. So we're trying to do the right thing by making sure we compensate folks correctly and timely. But that was a big, legislation they wanted to pass through. And I'm very thankful that at this point in time, it has not. But there is that idea, right, already in Sacramento. And that might come up again this year.
I've got so many questions as you're talking of like things that I've seen in the last couple of months. We don't have enough time for the show on this, but I'll have to ask you a couple when we're done for sure,
Absolutely. I mean, we're always learning ourselves. There's, like I said, I learn something new every day, whether it be HR related, operational related, you name it, or laws related, right? Yeah. So there is in California quite a lot of new things. I mean, we get busy a lot of the time, the last quarter and the first quarter of the year because of all these new updates, right? So handbooks got to be updated, policies and procedures reviewed. Never fails. There's always something new every year.
Perfect. Well, you touched on some of the things from the past. But looking at 2025, you did mention, moving to the 40 hours of sick time, which I will say the chamber was doing that before that was even a thing. So
yeah,
chamber. But what are some other things that you anticipate or that have been implemented already in 2025 on the HR side?
Well, obviously the minimum wage, right? And I think, Inland Empire, we think we're okay with understanding what the minimum wage is. But there are certain city ordinance that we really need to pay attention to, right? So not every city will pay $16.50 an hour. So if we're having, for example, if I have an employee that is working out of Pasadena at least 2 hours a week, I have to make sure I meet Pasadena minimum wage, right? So those are the kind of things that we really need to keep an eye on in 2025. In addition, that minimum wage every year goes up, right? For hourly folks. That also impacts your salary. So every year, folks need to review the salary pay for those salary employees, because we may need to make adjustments as well, because it is based on that minimum wage, right? One of the other things too, and again, most companies had this, bereavement leave. It went, most of the time it was 3 days, didn't have to be paid. And then there was a new mandate, right? And now it's required to offer 5 days, which makes sense, right? It still doesn't have to be paid, but it's a mandate now, right? So there's a shift now. Most employees used to offer that, and they used to offer it for paid, but now it's like, well, what am I going to do? Do I pay them for 5 days? I don't know if I can afford it now with another, 40 hours, of sick pay. Right. Can I just pay them 3 days? That's how we used to, and just give them the additional time off. Absolutely. You can do that. But those are all these new things that are coming up for 25 and situations like that.
Interesting. Again, millions of questions going through my head right now, for sure. So tell us, you obviously had a very recent event, but what other events does Inside HR Consulting have coming up in the next few months, next 6 months?
Oh my goodness. So we love to have fun. HR is not dull, okay? HR is fun.
I'm glad to hear that.
At least when you're partnering with Inside HR Consulting, we love to have fun, but also be professional and educational, right? So we're actually having an event on June 10th. It's a 90s theme event. It is called Waterfalls of Wellness. It's going to be about wellness all around. So we're going to have a special speaker for that. However, here's the fun part. You have to come and be dressed in the 90s. We're going to have 90s music. We are potentially having a dance-off, okay, with some prizes. We'll have food and, of course, drinks. So we always like to have some fun when we have our events, and they usually are themed. So once that's marketed, is out, should be out next week. I'm happy to share with the Fontana Chamber, of course.
Yes, and we'll push it out to our people. The 90s don't feel like that was that long ago. I feel like that was like my high school era.
Yeah, exactly. That was my high school era.
All those clothes are coming back and they're popular again. Now I feel like my mother's saying that. But
I better start practicing my stretching and all that good stuff, right? So I don't pull a muscle.
Yes. I was actually putting that 90s playlist, and we are so diverse in the 90s.
Yes.
All that music, all that new music coming in through the 90s. And I remember people loving all those kind of music, right? Like it was such a diverse time frame. It really was.
Yeah.
Hey, but nothing beats the 80s, man, for music. It's like the decade of the 80s, right? So I'll stand by that. For sure.
I believe it. Our previous event was 80s theme, and we had to dress up in the 80s.
That's cool.
I love it. I love it. Well, Vilma, how can folks connect with you?
Oh my goodness, they can definitely reach out to me directly. I don't hesitate giving out my cell phone number. I'm happy to share that. Or email. We are on LinkedIn. On social media, my presence is heavily on LinkedIn. Okay. And we also have an Instagram site. Okay. So I'm happy to share my phone number. Ready?
Yeah, go for it. Grab your pens.
It's 909-662-2302. You can always look us up online under InsideHRConsulting.com. And you can also email me, Vilma, Vilma, @InsideHRConsulting.com.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And you truly are a wealth of information. I feel like we could have taken that seminar that you did this past week and broken it up into like 5 different segments. So we will definitely have you back. For all of our chamber members that are listening, you definitely want to tap into those members only seminars. Really just a great time to hone in on a specific topic and ask those questions. But of course, you're a chamber member. So we'll be pushing out your event, and people can find you through our directory, or they can call the office, and you got your social media. So kudos to you. Good job. Keep up the good work. We're so happy to have you a part of our chamber family and sharing your wealth of information. And I love, just kind of tie into how you started the conversation talking about COVID and how you saw an opportunity through a challenge. And so I think that, for those of you that are listening that are, business owners or thinking about starting that small business, there's opportunity all the time, right? It's all in our perspective. But this is something that I told my husband, who has his own business now. And I said, stop building everyone else's empire, start building your own. And so it's always great to hear, especially women. It's March, it's Women's Empowerment History Month. So happy to have you on in March, just really showing the grit and determination that our women entrepreneurs have in this space. So keep up the excellent work. We're happy to have you at the Chamber of Commerce, and happy to, share your talents with our members. So thank you so much. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up our episode for this week's Talk of the Town podcast. Don't forget to check us out on all major streaming platforms. A new episode drops every Tuesday at 10 a.m. So you don't want to miss that. We're on YouTube and everywhere else that you get your podcast. Thank you again, Carlos of FYI Technologies. And I always got to say your little catchphrase: if technology makes you cry, call FYI. And I can't get through without laughing. But I love it. So if you're listening and technology is really just giving you the fits, call Carlos and he will take care of you. But thank you so much, my friend, for putting in all the effort that you do to make this happen. Vilma, once again, thank you for having you on the podcast and joining us. And thank you to all of our faithful listeners. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time on the Top of the Town podcast.
Thank you.